This is CBC Vancouver News.
On this day and every day, we reaffirm our unwavering commitment to combat terrorism in all of its forms.
It's about being fully present in the memory of my loved ones.
Dozens gathered to mark the anniversary of the Air India 182 tragedy, with some calling for a new probe into the bombing. And severe thunderstorm warnings for BC's northeast could bring with it flash floods and pooling water and new wildfire starts. Plus,
a couple of friends suggested signing up together, and I did it, so I'm quite happy.
a record number of young people signed up for the Vancouver Half Marathon. What's behind the uptick? Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. Families of Air India victims are marking 39 years since the tragic bombing that claimed the lives of more than 300 people. Most were Canadians and young children. It is considered the worst mass murder in modern Canadian history. Tonight, supporters of the Khalistan movement were also at the memorial, calling for a new probe into the bombing. Soab Sandhu has more.
Dozens of people gathered Sunday to honor the victims of the bombing through prayers and laying flowers at the Air India Memorial in Stanley Park. But this year, the memorial was also met with rhetoric from members of Sikhs for Justice, a group advocating for a separate homeland in India called Khalistan.
As a pro-Khalistani Sikhs, we stand in the solidarity with the victims of Kanishka bombing.
However, the group's motive is drawing sharp reaction from BC's former premier.
What took them so long?
In the early 2000s, Crown prosecutors alleged the bombing was planned against state-owned Air India by BC-based Sikh extremists. Only one person was convicted in the attack, Inderjeet Singh Riyat. Two others, Ajaib Singh Bagri and Ripudaman Singh Malik, were acquitted. Another BC man, Talwinder Singh Parmar, with links to the Khalistan movement, was found to have masterminded the attack by a Canadian inquiry commission. Parmar's picture now hangs outside Surrey's Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara.
We certainly support freedom of speech. We support the Charter. What is abhorrent to us in this context, and as well as in any context, is any type of glorification of violence. That is something that I think is very troubling to and should be troubling to all Canadians.
Either Talwinder Parmar is a terrorist or he's your hero. You decide which one first before you tell us that you're now really sincerely memorializing the victims of Air India.
In a statement, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is doing its part to counter terrorism, including updating its counter-terrorism strategy.
On this day and every day, we reaffirm our unwavering commitment to combat terrorism in all of its forms.
Sikhs for Justice are calling on the RCMP and the Canadian government to reinvestigate the Air India bombing. However, some of the victims' families say it is painful and hurtful that the facts surrounding the bombing of the Air India flight are being lost.
It's about being fully present in the memory of my loved ones and the promise and the potential that was taken away.
She says the anniversary is a time to remember those who were killed and to better educate Canadians about the tragedy. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Two famous Canadians are under fire for wading into a contentious debate here in BC. Ryan Reynolds and William Shatner are connected to an online ad against ocean salmon farming. It pits environmentalists against industry and divides First Nations. Yvette Bren now with reaction to the provocative ad.
You know, for almost a century, I have been a kind, decent Canadian. I just can't be Canadian about it any longer.
The it William Shatner's talking about is ocean salmon farming. And his language in this ad from a digital marketing firm owned by Ryan Reynolds is definitely not polite.
Off! Open that pen, salmon farms!
The conservation group behind it makes no apologies for a stream of bleeped F-bombs.
I think that the tone of the campaign really kind of reflects the way the majority of Canadians have been feeling for a long time about this issue. And so we just wanted to cut to the chase and tell it how it is.
The practice of net pen farming is set to be phased out by 2029, applauded by many in the seafood industry, like this former worker who was visiting a hatchery.
Farmed salmon do bring in new threats to the wild species, and it could just destroy the whole ecosphere of our natural wild fish.
But critics of the ad say salmon farming brings hundreds of jobs to remote First Nations.
I think it's incredibly disturbing, to be quite frank. It is completely tone deaf.
In a statement issued June 21st, the Coalition of First Nations for Finfish Stewardship said they were offended by what they call a classic example of rich, elite, removed urban white men overriding the wishes of vulnerable Indigenous communities. Not all First Nations agree.
Now, maybe the language that was used is not used by everybody, but I'll tell you, it's used by most everybody.
These First Nations elders watched the conservation ad at a Sunday soccer game in Nanaimo.
Your salmon farms are our wild salmon population. It's a state on our nation.
They say they had no problem with the language, nor the celebrity message. Yvette Bren, CBC News, Vancouver.
Capilano University's North Shore campuses will reopen tomorrow morning after being closed since Friday. The closures came after a student reportedly made a violent threat toward another student. The university has not stated the exact nature of the threat or who was involved, but says there is no ongoing threats to students. North Vancouver RCMP say the investigation is ongoing and no arrests have been made. The Cariboo Regional District and the BC General Employees Union continue to be at an impasse in reaching a deal. Roughly 100 CRD employees have been on strike for more than a month. The latest negotiation talks broke down Friday over language around protecting striking workers from discipline.
So typically when there is a strike, there'll be a clause protecting members or unionized workers from retaliation by the employer after the strike has ended. So this is a very standard clause, and the employer verbally agreed to it, and then later on reneged on their verbal agreement and walked away from the table.
The Cariboo Regional District says the union was demanding more wage increases than originally asked for, and their legal counsel felt terms could have implications beyond the strike. Libraries in Quesnel, Williams Lake, and 100 Mile House have been closed since the strike began on May 7th. Essential services like fire protection and garbage collection are not impacted by the job action. Hundreds of people who live in RVs on Vancouver Island are worried about a bylaw amendment that could limit their stay and force them to move every 6 months. A petition with hundreds of signatures is circulating, urging the Regional District of Nanaimo to not go forward with the amendment. Claire Palmer caught up with some of the residents in Parksville.
It's a quiet Sunday morning in the neighborhood, even if that neighborhood looks a little bit different than what you would traditionally think.
My neighbors are all great. We look out for each other. It's home.
Varnador, or as he's known around here, Gator, has lived here just over a year and a half. He's worried about recent changes to a bylaw in the Regional District of Nanaimo that says you can't stay on an RV pad more than 6 months.
I'm scared. I'm scared of what do I do with my family, my wife. I have a small pet. They deserve more than being out on the street. We don't want to be homeless. We found something that we can afford, something that we can call our own.
Riverbend RV resort owner says she sees a lot of seniors settle in at the resort. She says the lifestyle, community, and affordability all contribute, and that RV living is a solution for many to the housing crisis.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to ask seniors to move on a constant basis. Like, one of our primary things is shelter. You know, that human existence needs shelter.
The RDN says they aren't actually changing the bylaw, just updating it for clarity. As it stands, the bylaw has actually never allowed for permanent RV housing.
This bylaw update has always been planned to be in 3 phases. So phase 1 was always meant to be a bit of a housekeeping thing. So we've received all these questions. We've heard the message from the residents that this is not clear. And so the part of phase 1 was going to be going through and clarifying things.
While the bylaw has never been enforced, according to Craig, the region will be asked to formally suspend enforcement for peace of mind to residents. For Gator, it's of little relief. He wants to see the bylaw off the books completely.
Yeah, I live in fear that I'm going to lose what little bit I have.
The recommendation to formally suspend enforcement will go before the board in July. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Parksville.
A Victoria baseball legend was recognized earlier today. The city installed commemorative signs that read Doug Hudlin Memorial Way above the existing street signs along Higgins Street. Hudlin, known to many as the gentle umpire, was well-known and well-loved member of the local baseball community. He was the only Black non-American umpire to work the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. But it's his community connection that speaks loudest. Doug spent hundreds of hours as an umpire at Jerry Hale Field, a location that will soon bear his name. A severe thunderstorm watch has been issued for the North Peace River region, in addition to a series of heavy rain warnings for a large chunk of northeast BC. Environment Canada says the severe thunderstorms could cause flash floods and pooling water in the North Peace, which includes Fort St. John and nearby communities. Around 30 to 50 millimeters of heavy rain could fall in the wider region. In addition to the risk of thunderstorms, a smoky skies warning has been issued for the Fort Nelson area, with multiple wildfires continuing to burn in BC's northeast. The BC Wildfire Service says there has been more than 30 lightning strikes overnight in the Prince George Fire Centre, and more are expected overnight. All right, let's take a look now at our forecast. Let's begin with a peek at the different temperatures around the province tonight. Lots of rain blanketing the province tonight, with 10 in Fort St. John, 8 in Golden, and 10 on the island in Victoria. Moving into tomorrow, areas are going to see that risk of thunderstorms. Dees Lake, Fort St. John, Terrace, and Bella Coola, as well as Williams Lake. We'll see those risk of increased thunderstorms. And Tofino is going to be at 15 tomorrow with precipitation, but much drier in Victoria with a high of 18 for tomorrow. And over in Cranbrook, a high of 24. And for Metro Vancouver's 5-day forecast, rain sticking around for tomorrow, but pretty warm temperatures at a high of 21 for tomorrow. That rain may dry up a little bit for Tuesday with a high of 20. Over the weekend, residents in a small North Okanagan community received basic training on how to fight wildfires. As Megan Dooling reports, it's part of the province's plan to bulk up vital human resources in remote areas.
Kingfisher residents are learning how to fight fires. They're taking the same course that provincial firefighters take. And it allows them to help BC wildfire crews when they show up, depending on the need.
We're pretty pleased. I mean, we've got everything we have is volunteer. So people built fire wagons, complete with hoses and pumps, and that's all been community-minded people. So yeah, every year we just get a little bit better, a little bit more knowledgeable, and I think we're going in the right direction.
Kingfisher is a rural community with around 500 year-round residents. It doesn't have a fire department, so community members are doing what they can to be self-reliant. The Kingfisher Community Society formed so the group could sign up for the 2-day S100 course.
pump site without a water thief.
Doug McLeod is an experienced forester who's given 13 courses this spring in rural communities across the interior of BC.
In my experience, the locals, they know the area, they know the roads, they know the terrain, they know the weather. They're invaluable. They know the water sources.
McLeod says BC's recent push to educate First Nations and other remote residents is the future of wildfire fighting. It's new this year, and how it plays out remains to be seen. Megan Dooling, CBC News, Kingfisher.
The soggy start to summer may be a bummer for those looking to hit the beach, but the Coastal Fire Center says it's been great for the wildfire season. But with warming temperatures already having an impact on the fire danger rating.
Had a few warm, dry days lately that are kind of starting to shift the fire danger rating up a little bit, but overall, yeah, it's been a slower start. We've had 3 fires in the last kind of since Thursday on Vancouver Island. We've had 12 so far this year. So you can see by that kind of uptick in starts that things are starting to dry out and we are getting into summer.
On Thursday, 2 wildfires were burning near Port Alberni, as well as a small fire just west of Duncan. All 3 were brought under control and are considered human-caused. This is concerning some local fire departments who fear the slow start could be making people complacent. To reduce the risk, fire crews are asking residents to fire-smart their homes and by doing so, reduce complacency around wildfires. Thousands of runners laced up for the Vancouver Half Marathon this morning. And as Pinky Wong reports, organizers say they've seen an uptick in the number of young people taking part in long-distance running events in the city.
Congratulations. Welcome to the finish line. It is time to celebrate.
Months and hours of training have come down to this moment as Emily Delaney crossed the finish line.
I'm tired. I just made it under my 2:30 mark, so I'm very, very pleased with myself.
Delaney is one of 4,000 runners who took part in the Vancouver Half Marathon Sunday. Ellen Brooks, the national director of the Canadian Running Series, says numbers have gone back to pre-pandemic levels.
We've had 2 races in Toronto, 1 in Montreal, now here, and they're all sold out. And it's been driven by young people. You can see, you can feel the energy. 2/3 of the runners today are in their teens, 20s, early 30s. So I think we're seeing a new trend.
This first-timer trained for a few months and triumphed.
A couple of friends suggested signing up together and I did it, so I'm quite happy. My running time was 1 hour and 58 minutes.
Nice.
Yay! Yeah, I wanted to do it in less than 2 hours, so I did my goal.
Some showed up to support family and friends.
Half marathons, it's a great community. You can see everyone kind of all around here cheering you on. There's cowbells going. So it's a ton of fun, even for the spectators.
Organizers says money raised also doubled this year. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
After the break, we take you to Edmonton, where the dream of ending Canada's 31-year Stanley Cup drought is very real, and fans are getting fired up. Stay with us. Hockey fans in Edmonton may not sleep too well tonight. Tomorrow, their team could win a historic Stanley Cup victory. The CBC's Terry Reith takes us into the excitement.
For fans in Edmonton, the Stanley Cup is tantalizingly close. But for now, the only one they can touch is this giant replica.
They wanted to see the Stanley Cup, so we said, well, come here.
Friday night's stunning victory over the Florida Panthers sets up a Game 7 that has Edmonton buzzing.
Go Warriors, go! Bring that cup home!
Even on a blazing hot summer Sunday, hockey is on everyone's mind.
We're hoping we just kick some blank, 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 is how you would put it. But yes, we're all looking forward to it.
For Skinner. Stuart Skinner, emerging as a local hero in this series, recording 21 saves and an assist in Game 6. The youngest of 9 kids, he's brought intense pride to his Edmonton family.
The excitement in this house and the cheering and the support has just been tremendous.
The teams practiced in Florida today. Connor McDavid saying he's prepared for this final challenge.
We feel good about where things are at, but with that being said, it comes down to one game.
And while the game may be in Florida, Edmonton's Rogers Place is sold out. 18,000 fans expected at Canada's biggest watch party, with thousands more gathering in the Ice District, drinking up the ambience. The last time Edmonton got this close to the Stanley Cup was 18 years ago. For a generation of fans, this has been an amazing run.
Let's go! Let's go!
Terry Reith, CBC News, Edmonton.
Here we have a live shot of Burrard Inlet facing the North Shore. After the break, we'll take you to Burnaby, where a fundraiser is helping feed those in the community facing food insecurity.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC is the proud media partner of the Squamish Nation Youth Powwow, July 5th to the 7th. The cultural event welcomes everyone to a vibrant celebration of vivid colors, rhythmic music, and a strong sense of community. Tickets at SquamishNationYouthPowwow.com. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
Food Stock, a one-day fundraiser in support of the Greater Vancouver Food Bank, was held today in Burnaby.
We thought that this was a different way to reach some different supporters. Across the country, a lot of charities have older donors. It's an older aging demographic. And with the transfer of wealth, the expectation is not that their level of philanthropy will continue. The cost of living is up. People don't have as much, as many dispensable resources. So we wanted to reach a younger crowd and start really getting them thinking about philanthropy. So this was a way to do that with more of a festival approach.
The event raises money to help the growing number of people facing food insecurity. The festival featured live music performances by local bands, a lineup of food trucks and breweries, and local store vendors. 50% of proceeds from beverages sold will go towards the food bank, as well as 10% of all food and market sales. That is your late news for this Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Hope you have a great night.